All in Sports Network. We love sports.
It is Tuesday, July 15th, right here on your Daily Fix for all things Texas Longhorns. I'm Tanner Carlson. That is Jake Jimerson, and this is All in Horns, presented to you by Rogue Sports Network. Today's episode is going to be a real quick one. We may not even make it to 10 minutes today. Just a quick Texas recruiting update. It's been about a week or so, maybe a couple weeks since these players have announced their commitment to Texas, but we were also just kind of waiting for more to happen, and we haven't got that news yet. So we might as well go ahead and talk about it now, but just a quick update on a couple of players. 4-star linebacker committing to Texas earlier in the July, 6'3", 222 pounds from Katy. Committed over Penn State and Miami. And I just realized that I didn't write the name, and so I have to go back and remember the name unless you know it off the top of your head, Jake.
I trusted that you put the name when I saw you putting that
Yeah,
in there.
yeah, I thought I did, but then I have already it's blown by me. I will find it though, and then also
a little bit on you, or
yeah,
not a little bit, fully on you.
Yeah, fully on me, and then inside offensive lineman, guard, center, number 2. Inside linebacker or inside offensive lineman, John Turntine, 4-star from North Crowley.
Yeah, which is a big get, the number 2 interior offensive lineman in the country, and kind of a much needed get, especially after they did miss out on Ojo, who I think had kind of been just expected to go to Texas for some time now. But obviously, as we talked about in yesterday's episode, Texas Tech dropped a bag and got him. And as is so in recruiting, Texas does that as well. But they were on the receiving end of frustration from that. And so to get this recruitment that same day locked up is a really big get, because this was after missing on Ojo. Turntine kind of became a must get in I think the opinion of the whole fan base. So for Texas to lock him down on that same day is really big, just because they do need to bring in some offensive line, just with kind of the turn of talent that's going to happen over the next few years. They got to get some guys in this year that can start to develop and be ready to go, after a year or two. And Turntine is exactly that type of guy that I think could be a star level offensive lineman for them. Once he's had a little time to bulk up. 260 is pretty light right now, but he has the frame to build. And I imagine he is going to be a monster once he is touching the field for Texas.
No, I completely agree. And again, 2 positions, in my opinion, that you can never really have too much talent at. That's offensive line and anything on the front 7 for your defense. And so when you have that type of talent coming in, whether it be just role guys, whether their impact is going to be felt immediately or not, and they're just going to be kind of depth roles or special teamers to earlier on in their career, there's nothing about this coaching staff in terms of the development of their players that has made me concerned about really anybody that they've gotten. I've just kind of put full trust within this coaching staff of they know kind of the guys that they want to get. They typically get the guys they want to get, and then they develop them to be even better players. Kasi Akpala or Akpala.
I saw the name and I was like, maybe that's why you left it off. You know, try to pronounce it.
It's a possibility, but anyway, 4-star linebacker Kasi Akpala. Again, commits to Texas. Again, these are July recruits. Jake, you and I, we've talked about it before. July recruits don't hold a ton of weight. It's nice to talk about because there's nothing else to talk about. But again, these guys are very liable to, switch and flip their commits at any given point between now and National Signing Day, come, late November.
Yeah. The key to summer recruiting, regardless of how well or how poorly it's going, is to not get too high, not get too low.
Yeah.
Actually, if you look at the number of recruits Texas has, and the level of recruits they have, they're way ahead of where they were last year at this point.
They're typically not that. There's typically less news about Texas recruiting for the upcoming season in July than there has been this year in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, there's typically nothing but bad news.
Missed
And
out on this recruit, committing to Oregon instead of Texas. We get all of that, but the fact that as many players have had their announcements to Texas is kind of nice. Now, if they flip, you can't also get mad about it because Texas has done a lot of flipping from guys that have committed to other teams in July in the past, and then they end up wearing the burnt orange and white, for the next upcoming season. So again,
and, and I kind of think ultimately this 2026 class might be, and maybe this will get some people upset because you should never have this view or whatever. But with NIL, this kind of does go into thought process. This might be the least important class of Sark's tenure because of where the roster talent is at and how young the talent is on the roster. This class is going to not, to me, probably not have many day one contributors. And when you cannot offer that as a recruiting pitch, that hurts because other teams can offer similar NIL or more NIL and earlier playing time. And so that puts Texas at a disadvantage recruiting some of these top guys. I think they're going to go for a lot of project guys, and they already have some big fish in this class as well. Turntine is a big fish. He could very well end up a 5-star recruit when it's all said and done.
right.
You already have Diabell, who's a 5-star recruit, one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. I think Texas will still end up with a very good top 10, top 5 class.
It probably just won't be the number one recruiting class in the country.
And Texas doesn't need it to be this year. And then you had the transfer portal as well. And so Texas can be all right with filling some holes in the transfer portal. But I think this year they're just focusing on some key positions and trying to get guys in that can develop over a couple of years, because I don't think there's going to be a ton of positions available come the next year. Maybe along the offensive line if you got a day one type guy. But even Felix Ojo is a little bit of a project if you look at his film and you look at his granted it wasn't in pads, but he at one of the all-star workouts he was getting worked, and it's because he is a little bit of a project. And so Texas is just, I don't think they're going to shell out a crazy amount of NIL in this class for someone who's not going to play until their third year.
Yep. No, I completely agree with you. And then by the time that comes around, you might be missing out on another 5-star, or you might be actively recruiting a 5-star player in 2 to 3 years that you're more willing to commit to because he's a day one plug and play superstar caliber guy at that position that you needed. And so, yeah, I mean, look, and you can't bank on future things. I understand you can't bank on a future prospect from 2 to 3 years from now of, but if you don't think that this Texas staff doesn't have a pretty good fingerprint on the upcoming 2027, 2028 classes, you're mistaken, because they definitely keep an eye on these kids from their sophomore year in high school all the way up till they develop into their senior year, and they're actively recruiting them. So I don't expect Texas's recruiting to go down by any means, but like you said, maybe this one just isn't as flashy. You may not have 3 5-star wide receivers and a 5-star corner and these fun position guys, these skill groups that are going to be coming in bunches. You might have some guys that are just, run-of-the-mill depth pieces, special teams guys that are vital to having, good teams.
Yeah, and just developmental pieces like a Trevor Gooseby, who comes in as a 3-star guy but has a high evaluation by the staff, and then ends up being what looks like is going to be a star, going to be a first-round draft pick. And if there's one thing I trust with this staff, which by the way I trust a lot of things, but one of the things that would be maybe number one on the list is their ability to evaluate and find kind of those diamonds in the rough. In college football, recruiting on the video game, they're finding all the diamond players, and that's something this staff has been very good at, is finding not only the 5-star, the obvious guys, the Kelvin Banks, those types of guys, but finding those guys that come in under the radar and then end up looking really good. I mean, even
also the guys that you don't think are necessarily going to be the best fit. They might be 5-star guys, but they don't necessarily fall into those other things that Sark talks about, whether it comes to player GPAs and just the kind of person you are off the field and your commitment to your teammates and your friends and the family off the field. some of those guys don't fall into that category, and Sark passes on them, even though they are highly sought after recruits coming out of high school.
Yeah, and that's the thing with this coaching staff that differs from staffs that failed at Texas is not only finding the on the field talent, but finding off the field traits as well. And that's not to say everything's perfect. There's always going to be some trouble that happens. Obviously, there's been some players that got in trouble after they've left Texas. And then you had Nick Brooks, who did get into a little trouble. But from what I actually just read an article the other day that was all about some of the older players starting to take a really close attention to Nick Brooks and take him under their wing and try to, help lead him into not getting into trouble off the field and just learning from that mistake. And so the leadership starts up top with Steve Sarkisian, but it's trickled down to the rest of the coaching staff. It's trickled down to players who become upperclassmen and, become leaders. I know Cole Hudson and DJ Campbell are apparently two really large leaders on the offensive side of the ball. So you get these guys who have bought into a program for a few years, and those leadership traits start to become just as important as their ability to, have a successful down block, to pull and kick out the end, to be able to read a blitz. But your ability to lead on and off the field is just as important as that sometimes.
No, I completely agree. All right, Jake, that's going to do it for today's episode. Again, just a quick little update on where Texas is in recruiting when it comes to mid-July recruiting news, for whatever that's worth. But hey, we got to push out content somehow, some way. And that is your daily fix for all things Texas Longhorns today, right here on All In Horns. That is Jake Jimerson. I'm Tanner Carlson. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, hook 'em.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.